And we are back with our first commentary in a very long time, and today we're on our upper body session. I went through this a little bit in the last video when I explained my training program. The first superset is a heavy barbell bench press, working here with 70 kilos for sets of 5. Bench press has always been a poor lift of mine, so almost at a body weight for reps, which is good. And this was paired with a explosive push-up. Focuses on driving into the floor, pushing myself up as fast as possible and keeping my body in a straight line, working for sets of 6. Second exercise then was adding its own, so this is a weighted chin up with a 10 kilo plate wrapped around my waist, working for sets of 4 to 6. I've decided to go to weighted chin ups rather than kind of increasing the reps of bodyweight ones, trying to increase the strength, my pulling strength overhead. The third set of exercises was a dumbbell incline bench press, seen here working with 27.5 kilos for sets of 5, and pairing that with a explosive horizontal push. The explosive horizontal push is with the weighted sled, and I alternate these with the med ball throw as well, so depending on how I'm feeling on that specific day. The weighted sled is obviously a little bit heavier, so it requires a little bit more kind of energy to push, whereas the med ball variation I can move a little bit quicker as well. You could argue as well that this is more of a vertical push if you look at the position of my body relative to the direction that I'm pushing. So it's more of like a shoulder press, but the intent is still to move the sled in a horizontal direction. The last pairing then is a feet elevated inverted row. Again, one of my favorite kind of pulling exercises. This one done with a weight plate on my body just to add resistance to the exercise. Inverted row was paired with the barbell drop catch and row, in which I explained briefly in the training program video. So this one, in a bent over row position, it's a drop of the barbell, catch it as fast as you can, and then immediately row it towards the chest. Again, working on maintaining that position of the upper body, then the isometric strength in the hamstrings, lower back, and also that pulling speed as well. Really good exercise. Again, just emphasizes that movement speed. Not programmed in for many clients, but it's one that I've kind of quite enjoyed doing over the last couple of weeks as well. And that's the end of the commentary, nice and short, just like my calves. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next clip. Okay, so it's Q&A time on the vlog, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the questions that came in on the Instagram questions feature. Obviously just the fitness related ones, because there's some other ones in there like, is Dave on sunbeds? And again, most of you probably already know the answer to that. Absolutely. So I'll take just the fitness related questions, and then I can put this up also on IGTV, rather than having say 50, 60 odd questions in the Q&A section of the highlights reel on Instagram, and also provide you guys with some short form value, but again, try and get as much out of it as you can. The first one, what's your max squat? At the moment it's about 120. I'm kind of working in and around 90 and 100 kilos in terms of my reps when I'm training leg. I said this before as well, the number itself isn't really of interest to me. It's more so about how well I can move it and how quickly I can move that as well. So if I can move higher weights at still a relatively higher speed, that's what I'm going to focus on, because being an athlete, I got to be able to move quickly. Second one then after that then was, how many times a week should you train legs in order for them to grow? When it comes to training a bigger body part like the legs, frequency is key. So training them twice a week is going to be better than training once a week. If you think about training legs once a week, you train them on a Monday and then you don't train them again till the following Monday. You've had almost 7 days rest before you train them again, and that frequency isn't going to be conducive to kind of long-term development, especially when you consider volume, because again, volume is the weight that you use and how many reps that you lift it for over a session. And if you think about it, you're going to have to continuously increase your volume progressively over time, and eventually you get to the point where it's not feasible to increase your volume anymore, so you're going to have to kind of think of other ways in which you can progress, and that usually is kind of increasing the frequency at which you train. So you might, for example, lift 1,000 kilos in a session in squats, and you can't physically kind of increase that anymore because it might be 10 sets of 10, which is 100 reps, by 100 kilos is, sorry, that's 10,000. So you might lift 10,000 kilos in a session, and it's not feasible to do any more within that session. So you might have to lift 12,000 kilos of volume over the week, but then you split that into 2 sessions. So what ends up happening then is you lift 6,000 kilos in one session, 6,000 kilos in the second session. So within a session you're actually doing less volume, but over the week you're accumulating more volume, and then that's going to be more beneficial for you in terms of kind of growing your legs, because what you can do then is you can steadily increase the volume within those sessions as well. So eventually after a couple of weeks you're training legs twice a week, and you might be doing 8,000 or 9,000 kilos of volume in session, whereas you're almost hitting 20,000 kilos of volume per week. Again, that's the way you've got to look at things when you're trying to progress, and frequency is key. You should be ideally hitting each body part twice a week. Legs more so. If you're an athlete and you want to try and grow your legs, you may have to push that to 3 times a week. Good question that came in was, what is the most annoying / frustrating thing about your job and your clients? And when I first saw this, I was like, the easy answer to this question is nothing. I love all the clients, which I do, but then it wouldn't kind of give people who are potentially interested in getting into this industry, it wouldn't give them a realistic picture of what actually goes on, because there are many things that are frustrating in the job and obviously with individual people. It's not the same thing for every person, because everybody's different and everybody has their own ways of doing things and thought processes, and then that's the thing that you have to almost compete with all the time. And this is the answer that I give. So, people not putting things back after them. If you're in the gym and you pick up something, you are obliged to put it back where you got it. Don't just put it back in the closest place to you. Like, actually put it back where it's meant to go, because each piece of equipment, especially in this gym, each piece of equipment has a place. It goes back in a specific area. So when someone comes into the gym and they're like, okay, I'm doing this exercise, I'm using this piece of equipment, this is where it is, and then they go to get it and then it's not there, and then that's your fault because you never put it back after you. The other thing in it then as well is it's just decency, because if someone picks up something and doesn't put it back, then someone else will come along and have to put it back for them, but they might not necessarily put it back in the right place because they didn't know where it came from. And then what happens then is things get moved around, and then the gym starts to get messy because things aren't in the right place, and then equipment starts to accumulate in areas where it's not supposed to be. So again, that's one of the first things. Second thing then was like people expecting results in like the shortest possible time. Like obviously the fitness industry has been ruined by 4 weeks to shred, 6-week bikini body boot camp, like stuff like that, which is nonsense. Like anything worth having is worth spending time on it. So like if your main goal is like to lose weight or lose fat, then like you should look at it at a long-term view, and rather than look at it like weeks, look at it in terms of months, because that's going to be more sustainable then to long-term progress. Because if you look at it on a day-to-day or a week-to-week view, then it's just going to be difficult for you to get the results that you want, and you placing that extra pressure on yourself in such a short time frame, it's just unsustainable. So again, think long term rather than short term. People disregarding the basics. So there's like a couple of things that you should do at a bare minimum. 1, get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Obviously people can survive on less than that. I'm someone who, I won't say works better, but I'm someone who can work pretty well off 4 to 6 hours sleep. But if you can at all, especially if you're a young athlete or a teenager or a child, or someone who works a stressful job, if you can, aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep. 2, staying hydrated, drinking at least 2 liters of water a day. I always say go for like 30 to 40 milliliters of fluid per kilo of body weight, and that's the range that you should be in. So for most people that's anywhere from like 1.5 litres to 3 litres. If you are exercising vigorously, then add on an extra kind of 500 mils to a litre. Again, simple stuff like that. Taking time out to reduce your own stress levels. So everybody needs a thing that they can do, whether that's reading a book, listening to music, going for a walk. Everybody needs a thing that helps them kind of like deal with the stresses that they face on a day-to-day basis, because stress is like, it's a huge contributor to people's lack of progress, because obviously stress hormones and they can affect a whole lot of different processes in the body, and you want to try and minimize that as much as possible. The other two then was eating smaller portions and eating slower. A lot of people, they eat way too fast, and what happens is when you eat, there's receptors in your stomach which respond to obviously the stomach getting fuller, and when they stretch, send signals to the brain that tells you to stop eating, that you're full. If you eat too fast, by the time that message gets to your brain, it's too late and you've already eaten too much, and then that's when you get the sluggish and then too full feeling. So if you ate slower and enjoyed your food, you'd obviously get two benefits. You'd feel fuller, we'll say, on less food, and you'd enjoy your meal more, and then you have a greater appreciation for those meals as well. And then the second one was just eating smaller portions. Don't heap on the food, eat smaller portions. Just be not overly conservative, but just be mindful of the portions that you're eating. 4 was people basing the quality of a session based on how much they sweat or how bad they feel after it. It's like nonsense. People who go into the gym and will literally kill themselves every single session, and it's not clever, it's not conducive to long-term process. There's a time and a place for it, don't get me wrong, but every session isn't an opportunity for you to try and kill yourself. Training should be kind of progressively loading, progressively challenging, and kind of like just slowly building towards kind of the main goal, which whatever it might be. But you cannot go into the gym and kill yourself in every session and expect that progress. Yes, there should be intent, but intent and killing yourself are way different. And I made a point at the bottom, so these are the ones that annoy me the most, but the good news is that you can work on them for yourself. So if you're aware of you being someone like that, then you know you can fix that. So those were the ones in relation to adult population, and I put in one then for when I'm working with youth athletes. There were 2, and one was with parents, one was with kids. So if you're a parent watching this, don't get offended, because there are many people that do this. I'm just going to read this out, right? So I wrote, thinking that kids shouldn't be lifting weights or that it's dangerous for them. That's one. I'll leave a link in the description box below if you're watching this on YouTube, and I've a couple of articles below that you can go and read that I've written on this. And I was like, the only thing dangerous to them is a sedentary life and overeating. That shit will legit kill you when you're older. Yet some people would rather give their kids as many treats as they want and let them play one more game on the Xbox or PlayStation than get them involved in activity outside. Like, I know people will watch this and think I'm not a parent or I don't know what I'm talking about, but like, best thing you can do for your child, whether they're involved in sport or not, is 1, teach them how to eat as many different foods as possible, and 2, get them involved in as many different activities as you possibly can as well. That if you get that right, your kid will be in a much better place physically and mentally as they grow older, because it's a lot easier then to go and get involved in exercise as you're older if you're someone who was involved in it as a child. The second one was kids. I was like, wanting to rush everything. Kids want to get in, they want to pick up all the weights, lift them, show how macho they are, whatever it is, and they want to rush everything. They want, same as adults, they want progress now rather than waiting for it and working hard for it. So most kids I work with have a friend that can bench whatever, and then this brings it with the idea that they should be benching before even learning the basics. Play the long game, learn the basics, be outrageously good at the basics, and everything else will fall into place. You've got time, and that's the thing I've talked about before. You go and learn the basics, so squat, hinge, lunge, overhead press, overhead pull, so like a pull-up, and then horizontal press and a horizontal pull. Learn those, be outrageously good at those, and progression will then come on top of that then. Next one, is it bad to eat Cocoa Pops for breakfast? Not really. Again, it depends on where it fits into your nutrition in terms of the day. It's probably not the best option because it's gonna, like, it lacks satiety, so you'll eat it and an hour later you'll be hungry again. But it's no harm to have it every now and again if it's something you eat. Don't completely discount it from your diet or your lifestyle, because again, you should be encouraged to eat the foods that you like, but in moderation with everything else. How much for a new membership in the new gym? Link will be below to the gym. Go and check out the membership page and you see all of them there. Really good question. If you get one bit of machinery into fit 100, what would it be? And then I answered it as like Musby said, we really do have everything in the gym. When I wrote them all out, it was like 7 fully self-contained rigs, fully customized bumper plates, deadlift, Olympic lifting area, glute ham raise, reverse hyperextension, cable pulleys, and a cable crossover area. And we're also getting 2 new lat pull down machines as well. 2 separate dumbbell areas. Dumbbells go from 1 to 10 on the 2 small racks, and then they go from 2.5 all the way up to 50. Sleds, 4 sleds, 4 bikes, 4 rowers, and like kettlebells, medicine balls. Like, there's so much in the gym, and you just, if you want, get yourself down here, check it out. If I did have to pick one, it would be a force plate. They are outrageously expensive, but in terms of working with athletes and groups, if you had a force plate, there's so much you can do with it in terms of kind of monitoring and loading force and power and speed and stuff like that. But other than that, not really. We have a jump mat in the gym, but again, there's only so much you can do with it. What's the benefit of making your own pre-workout apart from that face tingling goodness? So 5 reasons. 1, it's cost effective, so I can buy, again, give you context around it. I used to make my own pre-workout for the best part of 2 years until I bought the Ghost just to try it. I still have some of the ingredients left, but they're nearly gone. It's cost effective, so I can buy the ingredients in bulk at a fraction of the price and kind of make it myself then. Like, I get all my supplements from bulk powders, as you can see from the last video, and say if I bought a pre-workout supplement, I'd buy it for 35 and probably get about 30 servings from it. I can buy all the ingredients for pre-workout for about 22-24 euro, and I get like a solid 6 months out of it. I can dose it up then depending on what I want. It lasts longer, obviously, in addition to that one. I can dose it depending on what session I'm having, and what I meant by that is if I'm doing a late night session, then I'll just take out the caffeine of it, because if I have caffeine at 7 o'clock at night, chances are I'm not going to be able to sleep, and that's less than ideal. If I'm doing an upper body session, I'll add in more of like citrulline malate, because that's the ingredient that's going to give you that pump. And again, like, I can dose it depending on what kind of session I'm having. I've often had sessions where I've taken 400 milligrams of caffeine, so having that at 6 o'clock isn't going to be conducive to having a good night's sleep, and there's no point having a good session if you're not going to get any sleep to recover from that session. And then there's no unnecessary flavorings or ingredients that don't work. And there's too many supplement companies give false promises based on lack of evidence. So like, there's no evidence to support some ingredients, but they'll market it really, really well and tell you it'll work, but in reality it doesn't. So the 5 ones that I use: caffeine, beta-aniline, citrulline malate, HMB sometimes, and